Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping into the incredible and, yeah, incredibly complicated story of 20th century technology. We're going to explore how a century of just brilliant innovation brought us progress we couldn't have even imagined, but also created a whole new set of massive problems. This quote right here is the perfect way to kick things off. It just nails this feedback loop that defined the last 100 years. Our solutions create new realities, and those new realities demand even more solutions. It's this wild cycle of progress and dependence that we're all living in. So that really gets us to the heart of what we're talking about today. How did these world-changing inventions, everything from the radio to antibiotics, end up being such a double-edged sword? How did they fix one massive problem only to create another one? Well, let's find out. All right, let's start with the revolution that made our world feel smaller than ever before, the communication revolution. This is really where the idea of globalization as we know it got its spark. It's hard to imagine now, but before the 20th century, the world was just huge and disconnected. Information, ideas, culture, it all moved at the speed of a ship or a train. Communities were pretty isolated, and this idea of a shared global experience, it just wasn't really a thing. And then, in what felt like the blink of an eye, everything changed. First, radio just shattered the silence, right? It brought news and music from worlds away right into your living room. Then, television added the absolute magic of moving pictures. After that, the internet, which started as a military project, by the way, turned into a global town square. And finally, mobile phones. They didn't just connect us. They literally put the sum of all human knowledge right in our pockets. So what's the result of all this? A completely hyper-connected planet. And this wasn't just about sharing funny videos. It had massive political consequences. Social media became this incredibly powerful tool for organizing protests. I mean, think about the Arab Spring in the early 2010s. The power to connect instantly became the power to mobilize. That new global connection made our shared challenges feel more urgent than ever. And one of the biggest challenges was just as basic as it gets. How in the world do we feed everybody? So, in the middle of the 20th century, humanity was staring down a terrifying future. The global population was absolutely exploding, and our ability to grow food just wasn't keeping up. Experts were seriously warning about mass famine on a global scale. The world needed a miracle. And that miracle showed up, and it was called the Green Revolution. Now, this wasn't just one invention. It was this huge, all-out effort. Scientists used things like genetic engineering and crossbreeding to create these amazing new high-yield types of wheat and rice. Then they paired them with modern irrigation, chemical fertilizers, and pesticides to just unlock this incredible level of productivity. And the impact was just staggering. I mean, this graph of grain production in China says it all. Just look at that insane upward climb after 1975. That single line represents billions of people being pulled back from the brink of starvation. This wasn't just a win. It was a complete reshaping of how the world eats. You can really feel the hope in this quote from Norman Borlaug, who was one of the fathers of the Green Revolution. For millions of people who had lived with the constant threat of hunger, it must have felt like a true miracle. But as we're learning, miracles often come with a hidden price tag. And here's that price tag. On the one hand, the pros are undeniable, right? Higher yields, tougher crops, more food for everyone. But the cons were serious. This new tech was expensive, and it pushed a lot of small farmers out of business. The heavy use of chemicals wrecked the soil and polluted water. And as these new engineered seeds took over, countless traditional seed varieties were just lost. So, the solution to hunger created brand new economic and environmental problems. So, the Green Revolution helped feed this booming population, but what was fueling that boom in the first place? Well, that brings us to our third topic, the incredible breakthroughs in medicine that completely changed human life and, you guessed it, created their own unintended consequences. It all started with a lucky mistake. Back in 1928, a scientist named Alexander Fleming noticed some weird fungus killing bacteria in a petri dish. That little observation led to penicillin, the world's very first antibiotic. During World War II, it was a flat-out miracle drug, saving tons of soldiers from infections that used to be a death sentence. But here's the crazy part. Fleming himself, the guy who discovered it, stood up and gave a warning. He totally understood that if we used antibiotics too much, we'd kill off all the weak bacteria, leaving only the stronger, resistant ones to multiply. He literally predicted the problem of antibiotic-resistant superbugs that we're dealing with today. Now, antibiotics weren't the only medical game changer. In the 1950s, another huge innovation came along, the birth control pill. When it was approved for use in 1960, it was the first truly reliable, accessible method of contraception that people had ever had. The results? It was like a social earthquake. And you can see the shockwave right here on this graph. See that sharp, sudden drop in the US fertility rate right after 1960? That's it. For the first time in history, women had real control over their bodies. And that one medical advance would change society forever. By giving women control over when or if they had children, the pill completely reshaped society. It meant more women could pursue higher education and careers. This totally transformed the workforce and was a huge step for gender equity. It was a piece of technology that sparked a massive social revolution. And of course, we can't talk about medical miracles without talking about vaccines. Widespread vaccination campaigns in the 20th century literally wiped diseases like smallpox off the map. Even today, the World Health Organization estimates that vaccines prevent 3 million deaths. And that's not in total. That's every single year. It's a number that's almost too big to wrap your head around. Okay, so let's step back and take a look at the big picture here. We've seen how these incredible advances completely remade our world, for better and for worse. And this really sums it all up, doesn't it? The same communication that connects us all can also spread conflict in a heartbeat. The agriculture that feeds billions of us can also poison our environment. The medicine that lets us live longer creates new threats like superbugs. And it's the same story for energy. The technologies that power our modern lives have also led to pollution and climate change. For every amazing leap forward, there's been a new challenge waiting right around the corner.
And that leaves us with one last really important question to chew on. We've seen the trade-offs from the 20th century's big innovations. So as we're developing things like AI, gene editing, and new kinds of energy, what unintended consequences are we creating right now? What's going to be the price of our progress?